Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 77, The Work That Needs Doing. Now, all month, it's been about finding and focusing on what brings us hope, and I thought this week we could ensure that there is hope by getting down to some brass tacks and thinking about what needs to change in our lives. But before we get down into it, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge those who are hurting out there, who are struggling with this pandemic as it seems to be getting worse right now. And my heart just goes out to all of you who are struggling in different ways, emotionally, financially, maybe both. And my heart goes out to you. All right, so the hope is in the work is the theme this month. And so this week we're going to talk about the actual work that I'm speaking of. Because I want to take a deeper look at the areas you might want to identify as ones you want to do some work in. For some of you, this might be a bit of review, and that's okay. Because the more we remind ourselves of what is healthier and what is not, I think the deeper it can sink in for us, and the more courage I think it gives us to look at areas in our life where there might be struggles. Because I think initially, when we come out of denial, we still have resistance. So I think that the more we hear about, let's say, healthy boundaries, for example, the more we're going to think about it, and the more we're going to look at our own lives and say, wow, how do I do with that? Where do I struggle? Where would I like to get better? So that's where we want to start. Where are you struggling right now? Now, I know that this year is 2020, and things are probably really magnified because of all the craziness that's been going on. But try to step back and grab some perspective. Maybe COVID has given you perspective. I think it can force things to the surface so we see them more clearly. So where are you struggling? Think about the issues that are coming up in your life. Like, where are you noticing them? Are you noticing within and without? I mean, I think everything that we're going to talk about today is really interconnected. But there might be some areas more on fire, like your relationships with others and or your relationship with yourself. So one of the areas, of course, I'm going to want you to look at is your self-confidence. Like, how are you doing with that lately? Like, where is it? Do you struggle with social anxiety, perhaps? Are you still battling that critical inner parent that is really tough on you when you mess up or forget something or make a mistake? Or don't have the courage to try something, because we can be really hard on ourselves for that. How are you with owning your thoughts, your feelings, your choices, your behaviors, no matter what anyone did or didn't do right prior to that? We've done some episodes. You can check them out, 19 to 22, where we get down into self-confidence a little deeper. But for today, I just want you to kind of think about, where are you healthy with that and where are you not? All right. Are you feeling pretty good about yourself, or have you let yourself down? Do you think you've settled lately in your life, perhaps? Or are there things that you have plans to start working on so that you can be prouder of yourself and feel good about who you are presenting to the world? Remember, I think self-confidence is when our insides match our outsides. And we feel congruent, and we feel genuine, and we are who we are, no matter who we're with or where we are, for the most part. We have made peace with who we are. And so perhaps self-confidence you can think of as like an umbrella to the other topics we're going to dive into. And the next one is my favorite, boundaries. Boundaries are where we end and others begin. There are external boundaries, saying no to people, what we say yes to and what we say no to in life. Some of the ways you may struggle with boundaries are the unhealthy behaviors. And the big one, I think, is not taking responsibility. Playing victim, denying, deferring, manipulating, right? We talk often about manipulation on this podcast. Maybe being emotionally reactive. Maybe you have to be the one to point out what needs to get done. Maybe you put stuff on others and pretend everything's cool and let them get upset and have their hair on fire. Maybe you struggle to follow through on wonderful intentions that you express to others. Maybe you overpromise and underdeliver, so your heart's in the right place, but you have no business saying, yeah, sure, I can do that, because you haven't checked in with reality to see if you could really pull that off. Speaking of reality, boundary work, I think, is all about making friends with reality and having acceptance and healthy detachment and respecting others as separate individuals with their own thoughts, feelings, choices, and behaviors. Boundary work means being honest, not passive-aggressive, forgetting to do stuff we really didn't want to do in the first place, kind of forgetting. Being emotionally reactive and defensive when confronted in healthy ways. When someone says, hey, it really hurt my feelings when you did that, and you blow up at them, or you shut down, or play victim, or turn it around on them and manipulate. Maybe you don't answer the question at all. Maybe you just change the subject or walk away. We struggle with boundaries when we have poor impulse control. Buying things maybe we don't need or can't afford. Not thinking things through. See, taking responsibility means owning benefits and consequences of our behavior, of our choices, of what we say we want. Looking at things as a package deal and not in a vacuum. Maybe missing some of the details, like, oops, forgot about that part. I think when we watch too many movies, I think reality gets really distorted and narrow. Boundaries are all about acceptance, which means not trying to control, not trying to change a person, place, or thing outside of your skin, like we've talked about, not trying to get them to be different, accepting reality. If you have a lot of chaos going on in your life, boundaries are the first place I would encourage you to look. Either someone around you just doesn't have a grasp of them, or you don't have great boundaries with them in that relationship. Boundaries are about being realistic. Another expression of boundaries, I think, are self-care. So that's another area I want you to kind of think of, like, how are you doing with that? And with COVID, I know it's hard. It's been hard, especially those young parents out there who are trying to work from home and be teacher and parent and best friend and playmate to their kids. This is a really difficult time, and I just want to applaud all of you heroes out there. I think you guys are right behind the hospital workers and the first responders. Self-care means healthier habits. Whether you wake up early to work out, whether you stop spending so you can save for the future, how are you at saying no to things that aren't good for you and yes to things that are? And the boundaries come in because we need to make time for those, right? We need to say, I'm sorry, I can't stay up. I really need to get to bed tonight. So taking time for you, whatever that means, and it can also mean downtime. Self-care includes taking responsibility for what needs to happen or get done as well. It's not just taking a nap or going for a walk. It's making sure the bills are paid and we're doing things that we need to get done today. Self-care means commitment and understanding of the consequences of not taking care of yourself, of not taking care of your spiritual health, your physical health, making sure you're factoring in rest and play. They're important, And in this country, especially the country that I live in, we forget that. We have a hard time justifying, right? Taking more than a long weekend. We work, and go, go, go. Self-care means looking at the messages that you've internalized about taking care of yourself. What was modeled for you? And self-care is about not being a martyr, not doing it all or doing too much. Climb down, please. We need you. We need you in one piece. All right, so that's self-care. So taking a look at that and thinking about maybe tweaking it a little bit. Be nice to yourself and compassionate. Please don't beat yourself up if you haven't been practicing self-care. That is totally counterproductive, right? The whole point of self-care is getting grounded and loving ourselves enough to do good things for ourselves so that we can be more loving, kind, peaceful, and calm and available emotionally to those around us. Speaking of those around us, the next area I want you to kind of take a look at is your communication, your verbal communication skills, how you express yourself and how you interact with others, especially when it's difficult. You're getting needs met in healthy ways via I statements and emotional honesty, or are you acting out? Are you struggling to practice healthy detachment? Go back to those episodes on boundaries and detachment and explore that a little more. Detachment can be tricky, and it takes a while to get your head wrapped around, like, what does it mean? Detachment means I take my hands off your stuff, your thoughts, your feelings, your choices, your behaviors. So when I communicate with you, it's a whole different deal, as opposed to if I want to fix your feelings, control you, make you do something, stop you from doing something. Do you see the boundary blur versus detachment means I have to accept that's how you feel. Detachment means I have no control over what you're getting ready to do. I can't make you want to love yourself. I can't make you want to agree with me. There's a big one. We all know that intellectually, that it's impossible to get everyone to agree with us. We just have a hard time putting that into practice. Healthy communication means you're focusing on the solution and you're being vulnerable and you're not trying to lash out and you want to connect and partner. You want to feel safe and loved and be loving and emotionally safe for others. It also means healthy negotiating. It means choosing. And I think this is a big piece and the crux of healthy conversations half the time. We don't know how to negotiate in healthy ways, in loving ways, respectful ways, with empathy and detachment and assertiveness and boundaries. No passive-aggressive behavior in healthy negotiating. No acting out in healthy negotiating. There's agreement and there's choice and there's ownership. And speaking of ownership, how's your personal responsibility going? How you doing with that? And that can wax and wane. We can do really great sometimes and then slack off a little bit. And what I mean by that is owning your own power, which means you have to assume responsibility for everything you think, feel, and do and choose. For your choices, what you choose to see, what you choose to believe. If we don't do this, we outsource our sense of power and our sense of self. As scary as taking that responsibility may seem, there is so much freedom behind it. All of a sudden, people don't have the power to make you miserable anymore. All of a sudden, your choices broaden, don't they? Because you get to decide now. So it's the opposite of entitlement or a victim stance. It is, I'm in charge of my choices, I'm in charge of me, and I am in charge of what I want my life to look like, pretty much. And we can hand over our power so subtly and so insidiously over time that you may not even see it. So I do think it's something that I want you to really take a thoughtful look at. And if you have trusted friends that you can run this by, get their objective opinion. See what they want to tell you about that. Do they think that you're still all here, quote unquote? Or is the person you're dating or married to or working for, are they sucking the life out of you? Are you losing too much of who you are in order to be in that relationship? Because that person can't handle, let's say, your assertiveness. They don't like your boundaries. They don't like your differing interests. You know, and we can get really defensive about this because it can feel really embarrassing. Don't. Our subconscious is adaptive. You hear me say that all the time, which means over time, it slips away little by little and you don't notice it unless you have people tapping you on the shoulder and say, whoa, where'd you go? I thought you liked this kind of music. Yet you started dating someone and you put it on the shelf. Think about what are the things you have put on that proverbial shelf? What have you not done in a long time? What have you not enjoyed in a long time? Just give it some thought. Don't get mad at yourself. Just dust them off. Take them down from the shelf. Put them back in your life. People can take it or leave it and they'll be fine. So a big way we can do this is another area I want to look at, and that is our values. We have spent some episodes talking about beliefs and values. So basically, I'm just going to broad brush it here, and you can go back to those and explore them further if you want to. But they're really our guiding principles, right? They govern how we live. They're often connected with our sense of morality, of what really matters to us, what we're passionate about, why we do what we do, who we want to be as a person, right? Our integrity. Our values comprise our integrity, I think. And they're often tied to what we believe deep in our heart. Like if we believe we must be truthful, then we're probably going to hold honesty in high regard. I know I do. I think your integrity is the core of your self-esteem. And I think you can only give that away. People can't take that from you. You give it away. I think a sense of values is deeply tied to our sense of purpose and our meaning in our life. And they're going to drive the bus. Like if you value success, guess what? You're going to strive for success. If you're passionate about helping people, that's what's going to get you out of bed. So if you're not sure that you are solid in what values you have defined for yourself, maybe you haven't done this exercise in a while, because things can change. Life can show up and change us tremendously. And that's a good thing. Because we can refine some values, we can add some more, and we can change some. Maybe, like a good example, success can mean different things at different ages for us. You know, someone who has already climbed the ladder maybe will redefine success as giving back and going helping in retirement, as an example. I don't think we can be true to ourselves and not be true to our values and our beliefs. I don't think you can go against yourself and be happy. I think when we're not living our values, we're not okay, and we may not even realize it. But I've worked with a lot of people over the years, panic attacks, depression, all kinds of physical issues because they're not living out their values, or they're working for someone where they feel like they have to compromise their values. The next area I want to talk about is grief work. The most unpopular topic I talk about from what I hear from you guys, and that's okay. But I tell people all the time, if you do one thing in your personal work and nothing else, do the grief work. Learn how to grieve. It unlocks so many doors for us on so many levels. Basically, kicking and screaming to acceptance of reality, of what happened in the past, what's happening now, what might not happen in the future for us. Change is loss. And our resistance to letting go, to surrender, even though I understand it because it's so damn vulnerable and can be so scary, it blocks all the good stuff from our life. So it's really important to look at. And a lot of times grief work means not doing it alone, having a couple people around you who are healthy and safe and know how to grieve and aren't freaked out by it so they can be there to lean on. You need to be strong enough to do the work as well. You can't have a bunch of chaos going on, all the fires that you have to put out. But think about things that maybe you have not addressed, you've stepped over, have kept in the past. And think about how they might be in the way of you being open and free to express all kinds of emotions, from joy to anger to sadness to excitement. To be able to connect with those that you love on a much deeper level. Not doing grief work, we don't realize it, but it can hold us back because we're holding back part of our heart. It is an unresolved thing that is true, and yet it is not being looked at. It's in the way. So those are some areas. They're not every area, right? You may have other ones that you have decided that you want to work on for 2021, and that's cool. This was just to get you thinking, okay, the hope is in the work. What is the work? I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by everything that I threw out there today. I want you to get your list together, and I want you to feel comfortable focusing on what is next. Like, what goals do you have for what is next? And you may have goals for each area, and that's cool. We can jot them down. But where to start? Remember, all of the things I mentioned today work together, I think, like puzzle pieces. They all are interconnected and they matter. And they influence each other. Like, if I don't have great boundaries, I'm probably not going to have great self-confidence, and my communication's probably going to suck. Okay? I got to work on one at a time, right? I would always encourage, if you're not sure, always start with boundaries because you cannot go wrong. Boundary work is going to help you separate from others enough to love yourself, to look at what grief work might need to be done, to take a serious look at your relationships with yourself and others. And so it'll tap into all the other areas like self-care and whatnot. So you have your list. You start with one, and then next month pick another to focus on. Or when you feel like you have done a good job, let's say with your self-care routine, you've gotten in a good enough place. We naturally will turn to what's next on the radar. You don't have to control the process. All you have to do is show up with your whole heart and want to love yourself enough to make things better, but also with self-compassion, because life shows up and gets in the way and it'll test us, and it's okay. Just chuckle and say, okay. So today we talked about taking stock of all the areas where you want to do some work or continue working on. And remember, be proud of yourself if you've already started this stuff. Maybe you've made some great progress this year. And if you have, I am so happy for you. What I like here too is you can go back to previous episodes that we've done and listen to them again, look up information, and give it some deeper thought. Then grab some loving accountability so you can have some encouragement and mirroring along the way, and know that we are all cheering you on. You can do this. You can create everything you want. Maybe not in your own timing, but you can. Don't give up. The hope is in the work. Just focus on the work. Life will get better. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love having all of you guys here, and I love hearing from you. I hope you stay healthy, stay grounded, stay sane, you parents out there. Hold on to hope, do the work, and model hope for others. Check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com. My email is there. Go ahead and email me. Let me know how you're doing. I'd love to hear. Let me know what questions you have, what concerns you have, what you're struggling with. So remember, pay it forward. Keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, Please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now so you can really own it later.